content is brought to you by Algorand, which is the official sponsor of the Thinking Crypto channel and podcast. Algorand is building the technology to power the future of finance, the convergence of traditional and decentralized models into a unified system that is inclusive, frictionless, and secure. It is founded by Turing Award-winning cryptographer Silvio Micali. Algorand has developed a blockchain infrastructure that offers the interoperability and capacity to handle the volume of transactions needed for DeFi, financial institutions, and governments to smoothly transition into FutureFi. The technology of choice for more than 700 global organizations, Algorand is enabling the simple creation of next-generation financial products, protocols, and exchange of value. For more information, please visit algorand.com. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Thinking Crypto channel, your home for cryptocurrency news and interviews. With me today is Aarika Rhodes, who is an elementary school teacher and pro-Bitcoin congressional candidate based out of California. Aarika is running to unseat anti-crypto Representative Brad Sherman. Aarika also volunteered for Andrew Yang's presidential campaign. Aarika, great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Aarika, as I mentioned before the recording, I'm a big fan. I've donated to your campaign and certainly want to see you win. And I want to learn more about your background and what you're looking for.
Why do you want to see me win? What is it about my candidacy?
Tell us a bit about where you're from. Where did you grow up and how you became a teacher?
So I'm originally from Las Vegas, Nevada, and I was born and raised there. And my mom is Chinese, my dad and German, and my dad's African American, so I'm biracial. And when I was in school, I did like the orchestra, I did cheerleading, karate, so I had a really good childhood. I ended up moving out to Los Angeles, the San Fernando Valley, back in 2006 to go to school. And you know, the way I became a teacher is quite unusual. So I was at a thing that I was doing, and I met an onset tutor. And I go, how do you do that? Like, that seems like such a cool job to have while you're like pursuing whatever it is that you're pursuing. And it's like, so it could be like part-time, it's like on your schedule. And so I ended up changing my major from, I believe it was like communications to liberal studies. And then you have to do like observation hours. And I went into a 5th grade classroom and the kids couldn't read. The kids could not read. I was like, whoa, that is an injustice in and of itself. They were literally at a first and second grade level. And then it was in that moment, I decided that I was gonna dedicate my life to education. When I saw seeing it just really broke my heart.
Wow. That's just almost shocking to hear that was the case. And you know, how long have you been a teacher and what led to you deciding to run for office?
So I've been teaching for 10 years. I've literally taught K through 12th grade every year. I don't think people know this, but teachers get moved around year after year, or you may stay in the same grade for a couple years, but I primarily teach K through 6th grade science and math. That's what I love to teach more than anything. This year I'm just science, but for me, when Trump got elected, I said, you know, I'm going to get very active in the Democratic primary. And so I picked my candidate and I was like, I'm going to pick my candidate and I'm going to go so hard and really get behind someone that I think is pushing innovative ideas, that brings people together, solution driven. Like, those are my criteria, and Andrew fit the bill. And so I went to Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, like all over supporting him. Like, I was like for real, like invested. And what I found through that experience is that we really have more in common than we do different, wherever you fall politically. You know, like, it didn't matter if I went to like predominantly Trump areas, like Trump supporter areas, or Bernie, or wherever, Buttigieg, whoever, like people, it was like the same things kept coming up. And then when Andrew Yang suspended, I was like, but democracy dollars to fix campaign finance, financial literacy being taught in schools, trade school, all these different automation, the impact of automation. I was like, God, like I still want to make a difference. And so my dad was like, Aarika, you should run for Congress. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay. And I thought about it. I read some books, and then one of my former coworkers and I sat at a coffee shop for a month, every day for like a month, and we built our entire platform. And now here we are, positioned to unseat Congressman Brad Sherman.
Wow. And it's so amazing because you don't hear much of, well, it's elementary school teacher running for a congressional seat. It's just refreshing. And I like that. You're not necessarily part of any politically oiled machine, so to speak, or coming from some big corporate backing or anything like that.
Nope, I'm backed by everyday people, which is how I want it to be and how it should always be. I think when the pandemic happened, it really exposed, our failed education system. It really showed, all those disparities that when we think about the increase in poverty, we never talk about foster care reform and the foster youth. We don't acknowledge the impact it had on people. Like in my district, we have the largest deaf community. No one even talked about what it was like for them when people are wearing masks and then they're dependent on lip reading and they can't, people just don't, like there was no advocacy for these things that I think are really important. And so that ultimately is what helps the tipping point of me filing. But I think we're at a time where people are waking up and they're seeing that government matters, who their representative matters. And if you're not willing to put people first, if you're not interested in serving, being a public servant, then you gotta go. You gotta go. And so that's kind of where I'm at with my politics and why I decided to step up. But I think people are looking for new faces, new voices, people that are cutting edge, support technology, just are in tune with what everyday people care about.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one of the initiatives and visions that you have is definitely pro-innovation. And within that pro-innovation banner, so to speak, is crypto and Bitcoin. Tell us about when you first discovered crypto and Bitcoin and what was your aha moment?
So during the primary, people don't realize this, but like Eric Swalwell and Andrew both were very pro Bitcoin. It didn't get pressed, but it's true. And so I thought that was an interesting way, like an interesting thing to have on your platform, going against Trump. And then when I started my race, the Bitcoin community pretty much reached out to me. Well, actually, let me walk it back. I had kids on my campaign that were like, you should put Bitcoin on your platform because it's something that we care about as young people. We all have it. Would you have it? And I said, well, I'm not against it. I just don't know the FEC regulations and stuff because I've never done this before. Like I'm, again, an elementary school teacher just wanting to make a difference. So I didn't really understand how the compliance worked. And then Brad had a hearing, was very anti-Bitcoin, anti-crypto, and the Bitcoin community reached out to me, Dennis Porter, and was like, what's your stance on this? And I'm like, well, I'm not for banning that. Why would anyone ban that? And I have all the issues that we could be talking about. Why is this even a priority? And so then I looked into it more deeply. We, reached out to FEC and like all that kind of stuff on the back end. And if we can comply with it. And then we decided to just make it a part of our platform, which I'm happy that we did because it is something people care about. And as I was going around my district, I just don't meet people that don't have it or don't like it. And even if they don't hold Bitcoin or a form of cryptocurrency, they're not for banning it. I've never met anyone that's like, no, it should be banned. And so that means that for me, Congressman Brad Sherman is really out of touch with what people care about. And I think if we want to rebuild trust in our government, politicians need to listen to their constituents. And I hold Bitcoin. So like I'll be honest, I hold Bitcoin. I think it's a very important alternative to the financial sector. I hate the banking system with the fees. I hate check cashing and pawn shops. I believe it keeps people impoverished. And so I think it's another way for people to acquire wealth. And I think it puts pressure on the big banks to lower their fees. Bank of America just came out with that. And so I'm happy to advocate for it in Congress.
Now, do you think Representative Brad Sherman's stance of anti-crypto, anti-Bitcoin is because he gets his funding from banks and these legacy financial institutions?
Absolutely. And pawn shops and check cashing. You got to add those two, because I'm like, how can you take money from these institutions that keep people poor? 400% interest rates? Yeah. Like, that's ridiculous. You know, so I would never do that. He does it. Good for him if that's what he wants to do. But we're working to unseat him and to show that, one, that's not okay. And two, candidates should be backed by everyday people, no corporate PAC money, no big bank money. They shouldn't have such supreme influence over our politics and what policies get passed. That's why we don't get anything done, is because of this. And so I'm really in this fight.
For sure. And, you know, you mentioned the innovation, and there's a lot of disruption happening. And, you know, many folks, the younger folks, are viewing this as their asset class, where older generations, they had gold or stocks or whatever it may be. Not to say that the younger generation are not buying stocks, they are, but crypto is a new asset class that they're diversifying into. And the technology has so much potential to generate jobs and tax revenue and all that. You know, what's your vision when you get into office that you'll provide for crypto or have for crypto?
So I love everything that you just said, because I agree. I do think it's going to be like the next big thing as the internet. I think it's going to create jobs. I mean, we're already seeing the miners pay their workers 6 figures. They're looking to solar and wind to power to mine the Bitcoin. And if you look at middle America, for example, and you see like the reason, like a lot of the times people would say the reason why we voted for Donald Trump is because he was about jobs and the economy, and that's what Andrew was talking about with automations replacing jobs. And I think this is a way to provide a really robust salary for people and a segue into job creation for people that would prevent people from, like, I'm not a Donald Trump supporter, but like someone that's like divisive like that from emerging, because it was just like a form of hope. So I think that it's going to do everything that we just said. And I also think it's going to, again, like I said earlier, put pressure on the banking system to rethink their fees. And in Congress, I am going to join the blockchain caucus. I am going to co-sponsor the Keep Innovation in America Act. We are working on our own bill that we want to introduce, and to make sure that we keep this innovation in the United States. I think it could be a little bit tighter and not so heavily regulated. I think that's the entire point of Bitcoin, is for it to not be regulated. And so we are working on writing our own bill right now, which I can't really go into details until we finish it, because I want to be truthful to what we want to stand for. And we also found another bill. I can't remember the exact title of it or like the number of it, but we did find another one from a Democrat that just introduced this. So I do think that more and more people in Congress are seeing the net benefits. So then it would be my responsibility when I get there to also educate Democrats specifically and progressives specifically on why this is important. So I'm hoping to do that work with Ro Khanna, because he is obviously takes the same position as I do. And I think the reason why members of Congress are hesitant is because they just don't know. You know, like, we didn't know at first. Like, it took us doing our due diligence and researching and talk to FEC. But it is something that, for me, you can't say you're trying to end poverty, but you're anti this. You just can't do that, because that means you're taking the side of the banking system.
Right.
In the pandemic, they made billions of dollars. They would not waive their fees at the onset of the pandemic. So that's the case that I want to make in Congress. And I know that was like a long rant, but I really want people to understand that having people in Congress that care about this, that are willing to advocate for this is important, because if not, you have the alternative, people that are going to regulate it and try to make sure that it doesn't have the ability to flourish in the United States.
For sure. And your campaign, I was thinking about it. It's very much a microcosm of what I think was going to happen at a larger scale, because we're seeing already talks of people are there's other issues, obviously, but this is going to be an issue people are going to look at. Are you anti-Bitcoin, anti-crypto when they go to the polls? So I think your campaign is so significant, and with the infrastructure debacle, as I like to call it, I think a lot of folks in DC, for what I'm hearing, woke up to, these crypto people, wait, what's going on? they made a lot of noise and pushed back heavily.
Yeah, because 1 in 6 people own crypto or Bitcoin, right? And that's what, and we were just in a Politico article, and they literally say that. And I also think that I take issue with this. I don't know if you do, but I did not like them slipping that in, and then the Senate going to vote without even knowing what they were really voting on. That's why you need people like, whoa, this is in there. We cannot vote on this. And why is this slipped in there? And why is the language incorrect? Why are there all these inaccuracies? And that's the beautiful thing about the Bitcoin community, is that it's a group of people that value learning and communicating, and they're mission driven and focused on solving problems and not eating their own per se, right? And that's why they were able to organize and get people to write to their senators, call their senators, and raise such awareness, which meant that they had to rethink that position, which led into the debate of it.
For sure. Now, the great thing, what I'm seeing, and you talked about it, where we're seeing bipartisan support from Congress, and not often do they agree on a lot of things, but you mentioned Ro Khanna and the Blockchain Caucus, and we have Tom Emmer and Cynthia Lummis and Darren Soto, Democrat out of Florida. So I love seeing that, both sides of the aisle coming together. I know there's still more work to be done, and you said you're working on a bill. Do you foresee this year, with more education and advocacy, and some lobbying as well, that more members of Congress will jump on board?
I do. We were looking at the numbers in the caucus. So currently there are 17 Democrats and 18 Republicans. You can't get more bipartisan than that. And that's another reason why I support it, because it brings people together. I really deeply appreciate people that have said to me or tweeted at me, I am a Republican. I've never supported a Democrat in my life, but I will support you, because I really genuinely want to be a unifying figure. I'm not a divisive person. I genuinely just want to get things done and make a difference. That's the entire point of me running. It's not for any other reasons. I really want to advocate for young people and make sure that they are set up for success. And so I think that's such a dope thing. And if we win this, and we are leading the charge on Bitcoin and different ways to finance a campaign, my prediction is not only will this inspire more people to lighten up on their stance or just to take a firmer position, but I really do think in 2028, you will see presidents run on this issue. I really do.
Wow.
Save this clip. I really think that.
Yeah, it's amazing how significant of an issue this has become. And I think because it really, and I think you probably agree with me, it's the next layer on top of the internet. I go back, if they did this when the internet was starting, where would we be at? We wouldn't be able to talk on the internet right now, right? And the commerce that's happening and the jobs that were created. And this is the next layer. And there's so much potential and opportunity. And obviously it's a global competition as well. If the United States does not, take the driver's seat here and take the wheel, China and other countries will move ahead.
And you're touching on something that's so important. And I'm just going to piggyback off what you're saying. We took the time to look at the evolution of telecommunications and how much it used to cost for a long distance call, which was like really expensive, to now where you can talk to anyone around the world for free. And I think that's the point of the Lightning Network, right? Like you can just transfer money with no fees instantaneously right away. Where if you went through like the banking system, it's like 3 to 4 days, you know, and it's like, what if there's an emergency, you know? And I think that's the point, is that we got to keep up with the time. And younger people that are into technology, the millennials like myself, we grew up seeing the evolution of the internet. Like I don't use a floppy disk. Do you? Do you use a floppy disk?
And
no.
not anymore.
If I ask my kindergartners, do you guys know what a floppy disk? They're like, what? You know, so I think that's the entire point, is like, Brad Sherman had a floppy disk. We like he, you know what I mean? Like before computers. So it's like, it's so I'm not being ageist when I say that. Right. I'm just making the point that we need people that understand that the old way isn't working for us anymore. And that we want to modernize things, especially our education system. I think that's the entire point.
Yeah, absolutely. On the note of Bitcoin adoption, the Lightning Network, what are your thoughts on how Bitcoin has gotten significant adoption? Corporates putting on their balance sheet. You have MicroStrategy, Tesla, and other companies. You have Bitcoin mining booming in the United States, especially in Texas. And then you have El Salvador making a legal tender. What are your thoughts on all that? And do you see that trend continuing this year?
I do see it continuing, and I think it's because people own Bitcoin, and I think that they're like seeing like, oh, this is an opportunity. People care about this, and they're capitalizing on the trend. I don't think it's a trend. I think it's here to stay. That's my personal opinion. I don't know if other people feel it's just like a trend. I think it's going to be here, but I think that it is an evolving technology. I did have the opportunity to talk with Jack Dorsey about Bitcoin and the future of it. And I think exciting things are in the works. And I think that's why people are looking to it. And I think small businesses, going back to fees, are also considered as an alternative because of the fees. You know, I think my issue is rooted in like the fees and the long process of the transactions of getting things done. And I think we live in a society where it's like move, go, 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 go. And that's why Lightning is so attractive. And I'll just use our campaign for a really good example, like, and why I think more candidates are going to go this direction. We pay 4% through Act Blue of our contributions, right? I'm a teacher running against an incumbent that has millions of dollars. But Lightning is like a 1%. So we get to keep like 99% of one's contribution to our campaign. Where through Act Blue, we're giving up 4%. Do I think that there still needs to be work on the back end? Sure. Do I think when it comes to Bitcoin, we have to find a way to make it super user-friendly for the everyday consumer, everyday person? Absolutely. But we had to do that for the internet too. We had to allow the internet to evolve. And I think that's what's happening, is that Bitcoin, blockchain, Lightning, it's evolving. Everyone's working out the kinks. And I think in the next, I'd say, I give it 5 to 8 years, it's going to be a powerhouse.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just parallel that to the internet. You had the dial-up days, the AOL, the disc, and all that, right? Those were painful days, but then it evolved. It got better. There were multiple iterations, and here we are. We don't have to do that. It's much more efficient.
And thank God for technology during the pandemic.
Yeah. I don't know what we would have done. Let's talk about NFTs and the metaverse. I'm not sure how much you've research or done on that, but that is a branch off of the crypto market and Bitcoin. Any thoughts on those items?
You know, it's funny because because I work full time and there's a plethora of issues that I'm really diving deep on to prepare for a debate with Brett Sherman and to make sure that I can speak to the issues that I care about and make sure we're very research based. So I haven't had an opportunity to really do a deep dive in NFTs and the metaverse and all, like, you know, Web3 and all that. However, I have set up a bunch of meetings in the coming weeks to begin to learn about it, but I have been prioritizing Bitcoin and Lightning because that is what I have, you know, that's just, I want to really know this so I can be the best advocate in Congress, but that's me. There's someone like Reverend Wendy, though, who has campaigned on NFTs and different cryptocurrencies. She had an NFT fundraiser, and I think that was lucrative for her. And then there was like a little girl that I read about, that like 11 or 12-year-old girl. She just sold an NFT for like $12 million. So I think when you hear those stories, I think it's worth looking into. And it's something that we are going to just make sure we're well researched on, because I'm very, very pro innovation.
For sure. Yeah, look, there's a lot. I'm in the crypto market and industry, and I at times struggle to keep up with all the things that are popping up because the technology is moving at such a rapid pace, which is good, right? Innovation's happening, people are coming up with ideas, but it is a lot to keep up with, especially running for office.
Yeah, and I'm also like, for me, I guess where my thinking is like, how can we leverage it to help foster youth? How can we leverage it in our criminal justice system? Like when we talk about like inmates and like when they are there, how can we integrate financial literacy and Bitcoin as an opportunity for, you know, like, so I think of like, when I'm thinking about these things, that's why I go so deeply into it. I'm always thinking like, how can I connect it to small businesses, our D and deaf community? Like how could this benefit this group and this group? And so I'm just kind of like down that rabbit hole of like how to really make the case so more people in office will refrain from regulating it. That's really what I'm prioritizing.
For sure. And that is absolutely what we need. We're still in the early days, and we need to make sure that we don't stifle innovation, but like you said, you know, allow it to flourish.
Yeah, and in that last hearing on stablecoins, I think the questions that were being asked were just like I think they could have been better in the sense of the show, like really expose the net benefits. I really don't like this narrative that only criminals use it and that's not true. I know kindergarten teachers that have it. My mom has Bitcoin. She's not a criminal, you know, like, I mean, I know a lot of people that have it that are just everyday people. So I also think we need to change the narrative around it and really highlight, especially when it comes to the environment too, because a lot of the miners are being environmentally cautious and they are trying to find ways to extract methane, natural gas, use renewable energy to create renewable energy, to mine it and all that stuff. So I think it's really important.
Yeah, for sure. And there's certain stories, and like you said, they don't make the major headlines. Usually the negative articles do, but there are some power plants I know they reported in order to remain profitable, they started mining Bitcoin, and that has allowed them to stay open and operating.
Well, there's a girl on my campaign, her boyfriend has Bitcoin, and it's what kept him like above the surface level throughout the pandemic when all the job stuff happened. And there's another and then there's a girl on my campaign who was a veteran, fell into poverty, bought Bitcoin early on and pulled herself out of poverty, and now she is dedicating her life to advocating for Bitcoin cryptocurrency and supporting candidates that want to fight to end poverty or reduce poverty. I don't know if you can fully eradicate it. That's obviously the goal. And so that we're actually naming the bill after her, the one that we're naming it after, because it's just such a really important story. And I think it really underscores why people are taking a great interest in like making it a priority in their financial life.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I'm not asking for price predictions, but rather adoption. Where do you see Bitcoin in the crypto market maybe in 5 years? And I know it's like a loaded question. This is a lot of aspects to it, but from your
I really don't know. I'm not a good person to ask on that.
Yeah, it's probably an unfair question to ask you. Right now, your focus is getting this seat. All right.
You gotta see Brett Sherman.
Yes. Let's hit some wrap-up questions.
Sure.
If you could create your own metaverse, what would the theme be about?
The theme would be activism.
Awesome.
I guess it would be like how to get people to be active, I guess, in some form. Is that not a great answer?
Well, I get, at first I'm like, wait, how does that work? But then I thought, wait a minute, the metaverse is essentially like a group of people meeting in a virtual reality world. So you could easily bring people together in a metaverse.
That's where I was going, is like something that just is something that's positive, and it brings to fight for change, because that's just where I'm at personally in my life, is that I'm just devoting this time period in my life to fighting for the things that I care about. I'm single, I don't have children, I only have two responsibilities, Milo and Tivoli, my two kittens, and so that's why I chose that.
Awesome. And finally, rapid fire, favorite food?
To tacos and pancakes.
Musician or favorite band?
Beyonce.
Favorite movie?
I will say The Pursuit of Happiness.
Awesome. Favorite book?
Okay, don't judge me. It's a children's book, but The Little Red Hen, because it teaches the values. If you don't eat, if you don't work. Like if you work like that, I just think that I read that to my students every year. So The Little Red Hen. My
4-year-old daughter, my goodness, she loves that book. So that's one of her favorites. That's a good one.
I just think work ethic, teaching kids work ethic is important.
For sure. And then, when you're not working on the campaign and being a teacher, of course, what are you doing for fun as a hobby?
Binge watching reality shows.
No, this is a judgment-free zone. I'm just kidding.
Mindless television. I think because I'm always thinking at a high level all the time, I just go to mindless television. And
I don't blame you. You're obviously heading into politics, and that's a lot to deal with. So, Aarika, pleasure chatting with you. If folks want to donate and support your campaign, where can they head to? AarikaForCongress.com, AARIKA FOR Congress.com. Please remember that the maximum donation is $2,900, but any contribution of any amount really makes a difference. We're running against Congressman Brad Sherman, who is a fundraising machine. Not that we need what he has, but we need at least $1 million to execute our goal to make sure that we really win this. And it is a very winnable race. Or you can just go to my Twitter handle, and the donation links in the bio. Awesome. I'll put links in the description of the video and podcast as well. Aarika, thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to seeing you win.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me today.
You're such a good interviewer. You're a good host. I've done a lot of podcasts. I really you're so great. Thank you.
Appreciate that.